24 hours. That is how long it took the water in a Yellowstone hot spring to completely dissolve a 23-year-old man. His body was never recovered because by the time rescuers reached the site, there was nothing left to recover. You have been lied to. Your state tourism board would rather you did not know. Your travel agent will absolutely not bring this up. The vacation brochures skip right over the parts where the ground opens up, the water eats people alive, and entire towns burn from the inside out for over 60 years and counting. But what if the most dangerous place in America is not somewhere you fly to? What if it is the state you already live in? Today we are covering the single deadliest spot in every one of the 50 states. And no, not just the obvious ones. We are talking about the Montana Pit Lake, so acidic it can dissolve a steel boat propeller and killed thousands of migrating geese in a single night. The Pennsylvania ghost town, whose zip code the federal government literally took away because the ground beneath it is on fire. The Maine whirlpool, named after a pig because of the noise it makes when it swallows a fishing boat. Think you know your state? You do not, because the places that kill people are almost never the ones on the postcards. They are the ones the locals quietly stopped talking about a generation ago. Financial safety guides skip these places. Travel shows will not touch them. The tourism boards would rather you look somewhere else entirely. If you make it to the end of this video without adding at least 3 destinations to your never going there list, subscribe anyway. The algorithm respects a strong will. Let us break it down. Alabama is home to the Florabama, a beach bar straddling the state line so famous for its annual dead fish throwing contest that people plan vacations around watching a mullet get hurled across a border. That same coastline has a body count. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach ride Alabama's tiny sliver of Gulf Coast. And the rip currents there have made this shore one of the deadliest in the country. Multiple drownings hit almost every summer under double red flag warnings. And every year, some brave soul decides the flags do not apply to them personally. The Gulf here looks like a swimming pool. That is the trick. Warm, glassy, sugar-white sand underfoot. Then a current the size of a river that you cannot see and cannot outswim. Decides today is the day it wants company. If you have ever ignored a lifeguard flag, thumbs down. If you have listened to one and lived to tell about it, thumbs up. Alaska has a road so remote that it stretches 414 miles through a landscape containing exactly 3 tiny settlements, including one called Coldfoot with a population of about 10 people. This is the Dalton Highway, and it does not care about you. Grades hit 16%. Winter temperatures drop toward negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Alaska once recorded negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit back in 1971, which remains the coldest official reading in United States history. There is no cell service for hundreds of miles. There are no hospitals until Fairbanks. And the trucks blowing past you at 70 miles per hour are throwing gravel the size of golf balls. Picture this. You are 300 miles from the nearest ambulance. The sun has not risen in 6 weeks. Your windshield just cracked from a rock kicked up by a semi-carrying pipeline gear. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline snakes silver alongside your truck through white tundra, and the only sound is the crunch of studded tires on ice that is not going anywhere until May. If you would still drive this road for the bragging rights, subscribe to this channel. You clearly have the constitution for what we do here. Arizona hides a sandstone formation so restricted that in peak months, 300 people compete daily for as few as 16 permits. It is called the wave, and it kills. 5 deaths hit the wave in a recent 5-year stretch, and heat was the culprit in 4 of them. Summer temperatures crush past 100 degrees Fahrenheit on exposed slick rock, with 0 shade and no water for 2.5 miles of unmarked cross-country route. The Bureau of Land Management responded by putting up exactly 1 sign. That is the whole safety plan. Arkansas has a cantilevered rock formation shaped like a hawk's beak hovering over the Buffalo River wilderness. It is the single most photographed spot in the state, and the county sheriff's office gets 5 to 10 calls a year about people falling off of it. The drop is roughly 100 feet straight down onto boulders. In April 2019, a 20-year-old Briar Cliff University student fell about 100 feet to her death while repositioning for a photo. She was the second fatal photo fall there in 3 years. Physics does not care whether you got the shot. California owns the lowest point in North America at 282 feet below sea level, staring straight up at 11,043-foot Telescope Peak in the same national park. It also owns the highest air temperature ever officially recorded on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way back in 1913. Death Valley regularly hits 128 degrees Fahrenheit in modern summers. Rescue helicopters generally cannot fly once the air gets above about 120 degrees. So if you go down at Badwater in July, you are on your own until the sun sets. Steve Curry, age 71, died of suspected heat illness at Golden Canyon on July 18, 2023. Hours before he collapsed, he told a Los Angeles Times reporter, quote, "Why do I do it? Why not?" That quote aged in about 6 hours. Drop your state in the comments right now. We want to know how many of you are watching this from a place we are about to warn you about. Colorado has 58 peaks that top 14,000 feet, and the most photographed of all of them earned the nickname the Deadly Bells because 8 people died there in 5 accidents in a single climbing season back in 1965. The Maroon Bells sit at 14,163 feet, and the United States Forest Service maintains a sign at the trailhead that literally states the rock kills without warning. At least 10 more deaths have hit the Bells since 2000. The rock is mudstone. It crumbles under your hand exactly when you need it not to. Connecticut is not the state you think of when you think dangerous, which is precisely how Kent Falls gets you. The Cascades tumble roughly 250 feet over a series of ledges alongside a wooden staircase built for tourists in hiking sandals. Every summer, visitors climb outside the marked staircase onto moss-slicked rock for a photo. The moss looks pretty. Gravity is not sentimental. Delaware crams its entire coastline into a state you can drive across in about 90 minutes. And the deadliest slice of it is a narrow gap of water called Indian River Inlet. The tidal current through that gap runs at 9 miles per hour, which is faster than an Olympic swimmer, and it has been sweeping fishermen off the jetties for decades. Every time the tide changes, the inlet essentially resets its high score. Florida officially holds the title of Shark Bite Capital of the World, and the specific address of that title is New Smyrna Beach in Volusia County. If you have ever swum there, researchers say you have almost certainly been within a few feet of a shark and did not know it. Volusia County has logged 351 unprovoked shark bites since 1882. The county averages 9 bites a year. In 2024, Florida saw 14 unprovoked bites, and 8 of them happened at New Smyrna. Here's the twist. Most of the bites are not fatal, because the sharks are mostly juvenile blacktips who think your foot is a fish. That is somehow both comforting and worse. Hit like if you would still swim at New Smyrna after hearing that. Hit like harder if you were already planning to. Georgia has a canyon so big and pretty it is nicknamed the Little Grand Canyon, and here is the twist. It is not natural. The 150-foot walls were entirely carved out by farming erosion in less than 100 years, thanks to 1800s farmers who did not believe in crop rotation. Then Governor Jimmy Carter helped protect it in 1970. The walls are pink, orange, and purple-striped sandstone that geologists call unconsolidated, which is a polite way of saying it falls apart if you look at it wrong. Hawaii's most sacred volcanic feature is a crater at the heart of Kilauea, revered as the home of Pele, the goddess of volcanoes. It is also where a photographer was killed in 1924 by a falling rock, and where a bench of solidified lava collapsed in 1993 and swept a visitor straight into the sea. The 2018 eruption dropped a lava lake 700 feet in days, triggered a magnitude 6.9 earthquake on May 4th, and destroyed over 700 homes. That July 16th, a steam explosion shot a lava bomb through the roof of a tour boat off Kapaho, injuring 23 people. Then there is Lays. That is what happens when superheated lava hits seawater and creates a cloud of hydrochloric acid and shattered glass in the air. You do not want to be downwind of Lays. You do not want to be upwind either. Share this video with the friend who keeps talking about their Hawaii trip. Give them something new to worry about. Idaho has a lava field so lunar that NASA sent Apollo astronauts to train there in 1969 because it was the closest thing to the actual moon they could find without leaving Earth. Craters of the Moon covers 618 square miles of jagged basalt and collapsed lava tubes. Summer surface temperatures on the black rock exceed 150 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no water. There is no shade. The lava tubes under your feet can give way with no warning. Illinois has a state park named for the legend that a band of Illinois was besieged on top of a sandstone butte and starved to death there in the 1760s. It is also the site of one of the most infamous unsolved adjacent murder cases in Midwest history. On March 14, 1960, 3 Chicago area women in their late 40s and 50s were found bludgeoned in St. Louis Canyon. A lodge dishwasher named Chester Wager was convicted, paroled in 2020, and died in June 2025, still claiming his innocence. Indiana packs a tiny stretch of Lake Michigan shoreline into its state, and that shoreline drowns more people per year than any other Great Lakes shoreline in the country. The Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project has logged 1,334 drownings across all 5 lakes since 2010. Lake Michigan leads by a mile. In 2024 alone, 51 of the 94 Great Lakes drownings happened in Lake Michigan. The lake looks like the ocean's calmer cousin. It is not. Iowa has one of its oldest state parks tucked into a canyon, where a narrow park road crosses a creek called Pease Creek. That crossing goes from ankle deep to fatal in about 40 minutes when the weather turns. Iowa is flatter than a pancake almost everywhere else, so when the state finally offers a cliff, people run toward it with cameras out. Kansas has a town famous for 2 things. First, the world's largest hand-dug well, called simply the Big Well. Second, being erased. On May 4th, 2007, An EF5 tornado about 1.7 miles wide with winds over 200 miles per hour destroyed roughly 95% of Greensburg and killed 11 people. The town rebuilt is one of the greenest small towns in America, which is a beautiful sentiment. It also does not stop tornadoes. Kentucky sits on top of the longest known cave system on the planet. Over 400 miles of it have been mapped. Its walls contain fossilized ancient sharks from a time when Kentucky was under a sea. The cave's most famous death happened on January 30th, 1925, when a caver named Floyd Collins got wedged about 55 feet down a passage in Sand Cave. The rescue effort lasted 18 days. He died of exposure, age 37. His trapped body became one of the biggest media stories of the decade and helped push Congress to create the national park. Comment below with the tightest space you have ever squeezed through, for research purposes, also for the algorithm. Louisiana has an 85-mile stretch of the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans that residents call Cancer Alley. It is home to somewhere between 150 and 200 petrochemical plants, many built on the sites of former sugarcane plantations. Some of them sit directly on top of the unmarked graves of enslaved people who worked that land before the plants arrived. Environmental Protection Agency data placed nearly every census tract along the corridor in the top 5% nationally for cancer risk from toxic air. Louisiana has the second highest cancer rate of any state in the country. The Denka/DuPont plant in Reserve sits less than half a mile from an elementary school and has drawn federal scrutiny for chloroprene emissions. This is not a joke, and we are not going to treat it like one. This corridor produces about a quarter of all petrochemicals in the United States and does it at a cost the people who live there are still paying. Hit like if you had never heard of Cancer Alley before this video. This is exactly the kind of story that gets buried, and the algorithm needs to know you want more of it. Maine has the largest tidal whirlpool in the Western Hemisphere, and it is named Old Sow because of the pig-like slurping sound it makes when it swallows something. The smaller eddies around it are called piglets. Maine is the only state in the Union that could name a natural disaster like this and get away with it. The whirlpool measures up to 250 feet across with a funnel drop of up to 12 feet and currents that exceed 6 knots. Over 500 billion gallons surge through the passage twice a day. A schooner was destroyed there on March 28, 1830, drowning the 3 Stover brothers. Maryland has a nearly mile-long hydroelectric dam on the Susquehanna River that does 2 things depending on the day. On calm days, it is one of the best bald eagle watching spots on the East Coast. On release days, it kills people. The dam has over 50 floodgates. When they open, they send lethal current surges downstream that catch anglers standing in water that was calm 10 minutes earlier. Massachusetts has a booming gray seal population off the Outer Cape, and that population brought company, great white sharks. Beachgoers now use a real app called Sharktivity to report sightings in real time, which is a sentence no one thought they would ever hear about Cape Cod. On September 15, 2018, 26-year-old Arthur Medici was killed off Newcomb Hollow Beach in Wellfleet. It was the first fatal shark attack in Massachusetts since 1936. A month before Medici died, a neurologist named William Litton was severely bitten off Truro and survived after 6 surgeries. The sharks are hunting seals. The problem is that from below, a person on a boogie board looks a lot like a seal. Comment below whether that fact changes your beach vacation plans this summer. Michigan has a lakeshore where mineral-stained cliffs glow in bands of orange, green, and blue, painted by copper, iron, and manganese seeping through sandstone for thousands of years. Pictured Rock's National Lakeshore is one of the most photographed places in the Midwest. The cliffs rise up to 200 feet straight out of Lake Superior. That water rarely climbs out of the 40s or low 50s Fahrenheit. If you fall in, hypothermia gets you before the cold shock is done. Minnesota has a waterfall on the Brule River where half the water disappears into a hole and reappears somewhere else. Until 2017, nobody could prove where the water actually went. It is called Devil's Kettle, and the answer turned out to be surprisingly boring. It rejoins the river just downstream. The mystery got the tourists in the door. The kettle keeps them. It is a churning plunge pothole with lethal recirculating hydraulics. Mississippi has a capital nicknamed the City with Soul, a cradle of blues and gospel music, home to musicians whose influence shaped the 20th century. In 2021, that same city posted the highest per capita murder rate in the United States, with 155 homicides in a city of roughly 150,000 people. According to Mississippi Today, that was about 100 killings per 100,000 residents. Chicago's rate that year was 29.6. WLBT reported the full year toll at 160, roughly 13 to 15 times the national rate. This is not the city's fault. It is decades of disinvestment, a water system that keeps failing, and a state political fight that residents are trapped in the middle of. Share this video with someone who thinks the deadliest places in America are all in the mountains. Missouri sits on a fault zone that produced quakes in 1811 and 1812 so violent they rang church bells in Boston and reportedly made the Mississippi River appear to flow backwards. 3 earthquakes at magnitudes around 7.5 to 7.7 hit in a 2-month window. The United States Geological Survey estimates that great quakes in the New Madrid seismic zone recur roughly every 500 years, and damaging 6-magnitude ones about every 50. A modern quake would liquefy soft sediment across Memphis, St. Louis, and every town in between, threatening millions of people who mostly do not know they live on a fault at all. Montana has a lake so acidic it can dissolve a steel boat propeller. The pH sits around 2.5, which is roughly the acidity of lemon juice if lemon juice also contained arsenic, cadmium, and copper. It is a former open-pit copper mine in Butte, and it holds about 45 billion gallons of poisoned water in a 900-foot deep hole in the ground. Picture this. It is late November of 2016. A snowstorm forces a migrating flock of about 25,000 snow geese down over Butte. Roughly 10,000 of them land on the Berkeley Pit that night, mistaking it for a rest stop lake. According to United States Fish and Wildlife necropsy reports, an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 of those geese died there from both heavy metal poisoning and sulfuric acid burns. That was on top of 342 geese who died there in 1995 for the same reason. The gift shop is doing fine, by the way. This is a tourist attraction. There is a viewing stand. You can pay to look at America's largest toxic waste swimming pool. And scientists have found new species of microbes living in it because life will grow anywhere, even in a lake designed to kill everything that touches it. Comment below whether you would visit the Berkeley Pit for the gift shop alone. We suspect the answer breaks down along very predictable lines. Nebraska has a stretch of the Panhandle sitting near Chimney Rock, the single most mentioned landmark in Oregon Trail Pioneer diaries. It is also one of the most hail-battered patches of ground on the entire continent. The high plains, near the Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado corner, see more hail days than anywhere in North America. Grapefruit-sized stones are considered a routine event, not a headline. Pioneers looked at Chimney Rock and thought they were almost to Oregon. They did not know the sky itself was about to become the deadliest thing on the trail. Nevada has a crater blasted out of the desert by a 1962 nuclear test called Sedan, which displaced 12 million tons of Earth in a single detonation. It is the largest human-made crater in the United States, and it is still radioactive. 928 nuclear tests were conducted at what is now called the Nevada National Security Site. Sedan crater measures about 1,280 feet across and 320 feet deep. Back when the tests were still atmospheric, Las Vegas ran atomic tourism packages, and hotels advertised the best views of the mushroom clouds like they were a fireworks show. You can tour it now. If that sentence made you subscribe, we would understand. New Hampshire has a mountain that held the world record for the fastest surface wind ever measured by humans for 62 years running. 231 miles per hour, recorded on April 12, 1934. Mount Washington rises to 6,288 feet, which is modest by Rocky Mountain standards. It has killed roughly 150 people since 1849 anyway. Hurricane-force winds hit the summit more than 100 days a year. Wind chills plunge below negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. One hiker famously died of hypothermia in July, in shorts. In July, the mountain is committed to the bit. New Jersey has a wall of basalt cliffs facing Manhattan across the Hudson River, and they are the literal origin of the word cliffhanger. Early silent films shot their action serials on these cliffs, ending each installment with the hero dangling off the edge to bring viewers back the following week. The Palisades rise 300 to 540 feet straight out of the water. Falls from the crumbling clifftop edges keep happening. The rock is diabase, which cracks, weathers, and gives way in chunks with no warning. New Mexico has a steel arch bridge over the Rio Grande that stands about 600 feet above the water, making it the 5th highest bridge in the country. The railings are only 4 feet tall. It is a National Historic Landmark, and it now has crisis hotline call boxes lining the span. Deaths there average roughly 3 per year. In September 2025, a 15-year-old's body was recovered from the gorge below, and the New Mexico Department of Transportation closed the bridge to pedestrian traffic entirely in response. New York has one of the most visited natural wonders on the planet, and roughly 700,000 gallons of water go over its edge every single second. In 1827, a hotel owner loaded a schooner full of animals and sent it over the falls as a publicity stunt. 2 bears escaped by swimming to safety first. That was more forethought than the hotel owner had shown up to that point. New York State Park police figures suggest that between 1850 and 2011, an estimated 5,000 bodies were recovered at the base of the falls, with about 40 deaths per year on average. In 2011, a 19-year-old exchange student slipped over a railing while posing for a photo and died. Subscribe if you would still walk right up to the railing. Subscribe harder if you have already done it and did not know how many other people had gone over the same spot. North Carolina has an 11-mile stretch of Highway 129 at Deals Gap containing 318 curves, which is why motorcyclists from around the world make pilgrimages to ride there. The road has its own memorial called the Tree of Shame, festooned with mangled motorcycle parts from crashes. Sources cite at least one death almost every year. Police logged 18 crashes in a single season with 10 injuries in one stretch. In May 2026, 2 Florida riders on a Harley trike died after failing to hold their lane near mile marker 5. The Dragon does not require you to speed, it just requires you to overestimate yourself for about 2 seconds. North Dakota has a badlands so shaped by cattle ranching that Teddy Roosevelt later said, quote, "I never would have been president if it had not been for my experiences in North Dakota." That is a bold claim from the guy who charged up San Juan Hill. Theodore Roosevelt National Park is home to free-roaming bison that gore tourists who get too close for photos. The badlands themselves are made of eroded clay called gumbo, which becomes slick as glass when wet. The bison were here first. The bison would like you to remember that. Ohio watches its western Lake Erie basin turn a neon paint green every summer because of harmful algal blooms, and in 2014, one of those blooms shut off drinking water for roughly 500,000 people in Toledo. Residents could not even boil the water to make it safe. The blooms produce microcystin, a toxin that damages the liver in people and can kill pets who drink from the shore, and the lake still has its regular menu of drownings and rip currents on top of the poison problem. Oklahoma has a ghost town so poisoned that the federal government paid to erase it. Picher was a lead mining boomtown of about 20,000 people. Today it is a dissolved municipality ringed by gray toxic gravel piles called chat, some of them 200 feet tall, that children used to sled down. A 1994 Indian Health Service study found that 34% of Picher children had lead poisoning. The town was bought out and formally dissolved by 2009. As it was emptying in 2008, an EF4 tornado tore through and killed 6 people who had not yet left. Share this video with someone who has never heard of Picher. Almost nobody has. Oregon has an 11,239-foot potentially active volcano on its license plate, and Timberline Lodge on its slope famously served as the exterior of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. It is also one of the deadliest glaciated peaks in the world, with over 130 climbing deaths on record. The dangers stack, crevasses, fumarole holes, which are literal openings in the ice where volcanic gas vents, sudden storms, avalanches. In May 1986, the Oregon Episcopal School disaster killed 9 climbers, most of them students, when a storm caught their guided group near the summit. Pennsylvania has a town that has been on fire underground since May 1962. The coal seam beneath Centralia caught fire that year and has burned continuously ever since. Geologists estimate it could burn for another 250 years. The federal government revoked the town's zip code in 2002. The fire covers about 400 acres. The ground above hits 900 degrees Fahrenheit just below the surface. Carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide vent through cracks in the roads. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy fell into a sinkhole that opened under his feet and was barely pulled out before toxic gases could fill the shaft. The population went from over 1,000 people in 1980 to a handful of holdouts today. Comment below whether you have ever been to Centralia. We already know one of you has. Rhode Island has the country's first national recreation trail, dating to 1975, running past the Gilded Age mansions of Newport. The cliff walk stretches 3.5 miles along cliffs up to 70 feet tall. It also has a habit of collapsing. A 20-foot section of the walk itself gave way in March 2022. A man in his 30s fell about 40 feet in June that same year. The mansions above are permanent. The path is not. South Carolina has a national park that posts an official mosquito meter at the visitor center, ranging from level 1, marked all clear, to level 6, marked war zone. That is not a joke. That is a Park Service sign. In a national park, Congaree protects some of the tallest trees in eastern North America, and its floodplain floods roughly 10 times a year. The forest floor becomes trackless when the water rises, hikers get lost, and the mosquitoes are backed up by venomous snakes. South Dakota has an annual motorcycle rally that started in 1938, founded by a club called the Jack Pine Gypsies, and now swells the town from about 7,000 residents to hundreds of thousands of leather-clad visitors every August. In 2025, the 85th rally drew 537,459 vehicles by the South Dakota Department of Transportation count. The 2024 rally saw multiple rally-attributed deaths within 12 motorcycle traffic fatalities statewide that year. Only 3 of those 12 riders were wearing helmets. In 2025, both of the first 2 rally fatalities happened on curvy Black Hills roads near Mount Rushmore. The rally is the world's largest motorcycle gathering. It is also a lot of very experienced riders and a lot of very inexperienced ones on the same twisty road at the same time. Tennessee has a state park containing a 256-foot free-falling waterfall, which puts it among the tallest waterfalls in the eastern United States. The park has multiple gorge overlooks with sheer drops. The pattern repeats itself so predictably, it is almost a bureaucratic annoyance. Someone steps over a barrier. Wet Rock does what Wet Rock does. Someone else's family gets a phone call. Texas has a river beloved by generations of summer campers, tubers, and swimmers. On July 4th, 2025, the Guadalupe River rose about 26 feet in 45 minutes, cresting at 37.5 feet in Hunt. That was its highest crest on record. The flash flood killed at least 135 people across Texas, including 27 campers and counselors at Camp Mystic, a historic all-girls Christian camp founded in 1926. Kerr County alone lost about 106 people. The hill country is nicknamed Flash Flood Alley. The soil is thin, the canyons are steep, and heavy rain becomes a wall of water almost instantly. That combination made the Kerr County flood one of the deadliest flash floods in modern American history. We are not going to make jokes here. The families affected are still living inside that morning. Hit like to help this video reach the audiences that most need to understand how the geography works. So the next time it starts raining like that in Central Texas, more people know to move. Utah has a lake so salty you float in it without effort, once the site of resort playgrounds along its shores. Today it is a shriveling potential dust bowl, and the exposed lake bed contains arsenic and other heavy metals that scientists warn could become a public health emergency for the roughly 2.5 million people living in the Salt Lake City metro area. The lake hit record low levels in 2022. As the water pulls back, wind lifts the toxic dust off the drying seabed and carries it straight over the population. It has not happened yet at full scale. The warnings say it will, if nothing changes. Vermont has the only United States state capital without a McDonald's, and that same tiny capital keeps getting swept away by catastrophic floods. Montpelier sits in a river valley that the Winooski River has been reclaiming with alarming regularity. In July 2023, the Winooski flooded downtown Montpelier and came within feet of overtopping the Wrightsville Dam. Then July 2024 hit, and Vermont took another round of historic flood damage in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Virginia has a granite scramble at the top of a mountain in Shenandoah National Park, so popular and so accident-prone that the park now requires a day-use ticket just to keep the crowds down. 9 miles of loop, about a mile of rock scramble near 3,290 feet, and the summit is a bare exposed lightning target. Search and rescue on Old Rag stays busy. Hikers get wedged in the boulder chute. Storms roll in fast. Washington has the volcano that reshaped American geology on May 18, 1980. The lateral blast killed 57 people and blew about 1,300 feet off the summit, from 9,677 feet down to 8,363. It flattened roughly 230 square miles of forest. Lodge owner Harry Truman, age 83, refused to evacuate and was buried under about 150 feet of debris. United States Geological Survey scientist David Johnston, watching from a nearby ridge, radioed the words, quote, "Vancouver, this is it," seconds before the blast reached him. Neither man was recovered. West Virginia has what is widely considered the worst industrial disaster in American history, and almost nobody has heard of it. In 1930 and 1931, Union Carbide dry drilled a 3-mile diversion tunnel through a mountain of high silica rock at Hawk's Nest, near Gauley Bridge. At least 764 workers died of silicosis. Some estimates run as high as 2,000. Most of the dead were African-American migrant workers, buried in unmarked mass graves near Summersville. Many were dying within a year of starting work. Union Carbide harvested the silica dust for steel making, meaning the company profited off the very substance killing its laborers. Share this with somebody who thinks they know American history. This is the disaster that got left out of most textbooks. Wisconsin has ice caves on Lake Superior that went viral in 2014 when over 35,000 visitors trekked across frozen lake ice to see what one visitor called a fairyland of needle-like icicles. They have been too dangerous to open almost every winter since. Reaching the caves requires walking about a mile over 10 to 12 inches of lake ice. When wind builds swell on the open water beyond, that ice can crack and break up in minutes. Rescue in a full emergency can take up to 4 hours. Wyoming has the world's greatest concentration of geysers and hot springs, and those springs have killed more people in Yellowstone than any other natural feature in the park. At least 22 visitors have died in the thermal features since 1890. Picture this. It is June 7th, 2016. A 23-year-old man named Colin Scott is walking off the boardwalk at Norris Geyser Basin with his sister, looking for a place to illegally hot pot, which is what people call soaking in one of the springs. He slips into a hot pool. The water is above 199 degrees Fahrenheit and highly acidic. By the following day, when rescuers can safely reach the site, his body has completely dissolved. Nothing is recovered. Even his wallet is gone. In September 2024, a woman broke through a surface that looked completely solid near Old Faithful and suffered third-degree burns before her family could pull her out. The crust in Yellowstone is not always crust. Sometimes it is a lid on a pot of acid, and it does not care whether you meant to step there. America is not dangerous because of the places on the postcards. America is dangerous because of the places that got left out of them. Every state on this list hides its worst spot behind something beautiful. A photo op, a vacation brochure, a tourist gift shop. And the moment you stop looking, the geography starts winning. If you made it this far, you now know more about the deadliest corners of this country than most people who live in them. Hit the like button because it helps this video reach the audiences that most need to see it, especially the ones planning their summer trips. Subscribe because we are covering the deadliest small towns, the most abandoned cities, and the worst states to retire in next. And you do not want to catch those from the algorithm. And share this with the friend who always says nothing bad happens in their hometown. Send them the timestamp of their state. Let them sit with it. Stay smart, stay subscribed, and whatever you do, do not step off the boardwalk.